Play ball.
How you doing, baseball fans, and welcome to another episode of the Brushback with JP Ricciardi. I'm John Arezzi, and here along with me is the former GM, front office executive, and now the broadcaster, the podcaster, the analyst, JP. How you doing, JP? Welcome back. Another
Good,
week.
John. Everything's good. How you doing?
I'm doing really good. Really getting ready to go to New York this weekend, and got some pretty cool things happening up there.
Good.
A friend of mine is being honored at Citi Field as the veteran of the game, so I'll be at that. So there's lots going on, and I'll be able to see my Mets. So you know how excited I get.
No one gets more excited about the Mets than you.
I know, and heartbroken too. So
well, the races are heating up. This is a fun time of year. It's really been interesting to follow. It's all coming to a head leading up to that crazy month of September. So it's going to be exciting.
I think so. We have lots of baseball to talk about today, as well as a great special guest coming up in the Batter Up segment. JP, tell us about your guest today.
We have Scotty Bradley, the head coach of Princeton University, who was a longtime major league player, played with the Yankees, mostly with Seattle, was a really grinded-out, hard-nosed player, really had to work hard to achieve his success. But from there, he went on to be the head coach at Princeton University. I believe he's going on 26 or 27 years, has done a very, very good job there at a school that isn't a Power 5 conference that has to get a certain level of kid to go there and play. And he's produced big league players from that school and just a well-rounded baseball guy. And I think people are going to really be interested to hear some of his views on what college baseball is today, what professional baseball is today, and his experiences on both levels.
Well, we look forward to hearing that later. Should be a good one. Before we get to Scott, let's get into hot takes of the week, brought to you by Percy's Appliance Outlets, featuring brand name appliances at up to 80% off regular retail prices. They are Worcester's largest dealer of home appliances and electronics, serving Worcester for over 80 years. Go to Percy's.com right now and check out their sweet summer savings deals going on in their big summer sales event. Save big on local appliance rebates, manufacturer rebates, plus consumer financing options. Once again, go to Percy's.com for all the details or give them a call at 508-438-6800. Once again, it's their big summer sales event going on at Percy's right now. Okay, JP, hot take number one for today. A big milestone happened in the major leagues. A player hitting his 300th home run, becoming the fastest player ever in the history of the game to achieve that. It was Aaron Judge, who broke the record of Ralph Kiner, smashing home run number 300 in his 955th career game, which smashed Kiner's record of getting to 300 in 1,087 games. And maybe even more impressive, JP, Judge got there in 400 fewer at-bats than the immortal Babe Ruth. I know we've talked about Judge before, but another incredible milestone.
Well, we have to talk about him because he's doing things that are just unheard of. You think of Babe Ruth, Willie Mays, Hank Aaron, Ken Griffey Jr., Barry Bonds. You think of some of the greatest players who ever played our game. This is the fastest guy to 300 home runs. It's historical, and it tells you what kind of play. And don't forget, Judge missed some time. Last year, his foot, he missed some time with that. So this isn't like he's played 162 games out straight. I think it's incredible. I think he's on pace for, obviously, the MVP of the American League. I know his teammate Soto is going to push him a little bit, and he's going to get some other guys. But Bobby Witt Jr. is a very good player too. But I just think it's amazing. We're watching history play out right before ourselves. It's like watching Ruth. It's just absolutely incredible. And every night he just seems to put the Yankees on his back and carry him.
Yeah, he does. And you know what the craziest thing last night? It was like the White Sox, they're playing the White Sox, and everybody knows what the White Sox season has been like, even though they did beat the Yankees a couple of days ago. But in the game last night, they actually walked Juan Soto, who hit 3 home runs in a game the night before, to get to Judge, and then Judge hits that 300th home run. Just incredible to see these two back to back. It's almost like our modern day Ruth Gehrig.
It
in
reminds
a
me of
way.
when the Red Sox were really good between 2004 to about 2010 when Ortiz and Ramirez were back to back. Both guys were
Exactly.
hitting close to 40 home runs, 50 home. They were getting 90 home runs between two guys, and they were both driving in over 100 runs. So they were getting close to, 240 RBI. So you're right. You're talking about Ruth and Gehrig type numbers. It's absolutely incredible.
It is. And Judge, of course, it was his 43rd home run. And so he's what a pace he's on. I can't wait to see how the rest of the season unfolds for Aaron Judge. JP, over in the National League, I can't I can't even think of two hotter teams at the same time right now going for that National League. Not only the wild card race, but the Western Division. It's the Padres and the Arizona Diamondbacks. Padres are playing some of their best baseball, not just this year, but in franchise history. They've won 19 of their last 22 games. The Diamondbacks have won 13 of their last 15. They're tied with identical records right now as we tape this. In the wild card race, they're now 4 games up of that third wild card spot. The Braves, who've had their problems, and now 6 games over the Mets. They're pulling away from it, but as you made note before we started taping, they're inching closer to the Dodgers as well.
I'm looking at the standings on my phone as we're speaking here. They're both 16 games over 500. They were under 500 about a month and a half ago.
I know.
They're red hot. They're both on the Dodgers' tail. Everybody thought the Dodgers were just going to be a cakewalk and walk away with this, including me. And now in the loss column, they're both just 3 games behind the Dodgers. So they're closing the gap, and you still have the month of September. You basically have about 6 weeks left. So it's conceivable that the Diamondbacks and the Padres could catch the Dodgers. And I think if we just go look at their schedule real quick, I got to believe September. I'm looking at Arizona's schedule right now. 1, 2, 3. I believe they've got the Dodgers 3 more times, or 3 or 4 more times. And then I got to believe that San Diego has them a few more times. Here, let me look real quick. So some of these head-to-heads could result in them overtaking the Dodgers. Padres got the Dodgers late in September, like September 24th, 25th, 26th. So if they can keep it
Wow.
within 3, and listen, we were 3 games behind the Nationals one time when we made the trade for Cespedes,
Yeah.
swept the Nationals,
Yeah.
and took off. So
Yep.
if they can keep it close, I'd be really concerned if I was the Dodgers. Although I think when you look at the Dodgers, they made some great moves on the periphery with the ancillary guys that could come in and help here and there. And then they got Mookie Betts back. So they might be a little bit different team. They may kick it into another gear at some point. But I believe those 3 teams are going to make the playoffs.
Yeah, and of course the Padres have just exploded since the trade deadline. They made some great moves, and it's going to be fun to watch. And JP, I really can't recall a more exciting part of August going into September. There's so much excitement in both leagues with so many things happening in baseball. Baseball's in a good place right now.
Well,
We're going to
you think
go
about
ahead.
it, John, that extra wild card has made it so more teams are, like you just mentioned, when you look at the wild card, the Mets are still involved. There's some teams besides the 3 that are like if the season ended today, they would be in. There's still 2 or 3 teams still knocking on the door. Same in the American League. I mean, the Red Sox and Kansas City are battling out. Seattle's still there. So I think when you get to September, I think teams have to be no more than 5 games out. I think you can make 5 games up in September, but I think it's hard to make more than that, unless you're the Miracle Mets of '69.
Well, uh, from our words to God's ears, that would be that would be something I'd certainly enjoy, as you know.
I
We're
read
going to be
something the other day. The Mets in '69, I think they went something like 39-19,
yeah,
something like that in the second half to
yeah,
close. They were like 7 games out at one time, and then
yeah.
they closed the gap. So listen, it could happen. I think if you're a team though that's 2 or 3 games behind, 2 or 3 teams behind, now you got to jump over more teams. That's where the problem lies.
Yeah, I remember the Mets were like 9.5 games behind the Chicago Cubs. I remember Bob Murphy's voice. The Mets are now 9.5 games behind the Chicago Cubs. It was like July 30th, August
Right.
1st. And what a roll they went on. And of course, that was a miracle season. I'd love to see another one. JP, we're going to be back with another hot take. You got some speculation on MLB with some pitching rules, but we're going to get to that right after this word from Percy's Home Appliance Outlet.
Percy's Appliance Outlet, next to our showroom on Gold Star Boulevard in Worcester, featuring brand name appliances at up to 80% off regular retail price and come with manufacturer's warranties. Contractors and property managers save even more with volume discounts. Fast, professional delivery, removal, and installation, or bring your vehicle and pick it up the same day. Shop online with long-term financing available at Percy's.com. Percy's Appliance Outlet, first on Gold Star Boulevard in Worcester.
Okay, JP, we're back, and there's been some talk about Major League Baseball tweaking with more rules when it comes to pitching. So why don't you give us the hot take on that?
Well, I'm just reading it today, so it's new to me, and I'm sure it's new to some of our listeners out there, but I think Major League Baseball is toying with some ideas of mandatory that the starting pitcher has to go 6 innings. And I think it's a little radical, but
Yeah.
I think it's radical in the right way. We have got to, as in our game, we've got to bring back the importance of a starting pitcher. There's got to be some validity to it. If that's the case, we're going to be having openers playing. You're going to have guys throwing 3 innings. We're not going to develop. There are some quality arms out there that should be allowed to pitch 5 to 6 innings. I think I'll give baseball credit for this. They're very much aware of the fans, and I think the fans can't relate to an opener. I think when you see a guy like Paul Skeens that shows up and you put Paul Skeens on the marquee, people say, I want to go see Paul Skeens. They don't want to go see an opener. I want to go see Logan Webb. I want to go see Clayton Kershaw in his prime. I want to see Jacob deGrom. I mean, I think we're losing the entertainment value by diminishing those type of guys. And there are some guys out there that are just quality starters that need to be, the highlight of an organization. You look at the Mariners; they've got good starting pitching. Everybody in baseball is envious of their starting pitching. You'd love to have those guys that you could say, okay, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I know I'm getting 6 innings out of my starter. And I know I'm sounding old-fashioned, but 6 innings, that's still not, we used to shoot for 7 and 8 innings. They used to have 10-man staffs. I understand that, but I think it's it's going to be very interesting to see how Major League Baseball pursues this and see how organizations read into it. But baseball's a copycat game, so all it's going to take is one team to start, pushing this and believing in this, and other teams are going to get on board. So I'm very, very excited to see where this goes.
Yeah, I think the game needs, longer outings by those starting pitchers. We'll see what happens as we continue to follow that story, JP. Now it's time for Batter Up with JP, brought to you by the Worcester Bravehearts. And if you're looking for affordable family fun, as many did over the course of this past season, the Bravehearts are already planning for an exciting 2025. The 4-time Futures Collegiate Baseball League champion Bravehearts want to thank everybody for coming out this season, and we'll be keeping you updated during their off-season. Follow the Bravehearts on Instagram at Woo Baseball and go to the WorcesterBraveheartsStore.com to get some Bravehearts merch, including caps, T-shirts, jerseys, sweatshirts, and more. Go to that website right now, WorcesterBraveheartsStore.com. On today's Batter Up with JP, our guest is a former Major League catcher who played in the big leagues from 1984 to 1992, stops along the way with the Chicago White Sox, Seattle Mariners, New York Yankees, and Cincinnati Reds. He's currently the head coach of the Princeton Tigers baseball team. Let's say hello to Scott Bradley. Scott, welcome to Batter Up with JP.
Hey, it's my pleasure, guys. Should be a lot of fun.
Scotty, thanks for doing this. I really appreciate it. And I think what our listeners are going to get out of this, they're going to find out a really hardcore, love of the game baseball guy. And it's one of the things I always admired about you. And I'm going to jump right into it. When did you fall in love with baseball?
I can never remember not having baseball as part of my life. You know what? I grew up sort of, people wouldn't know what it is, but Claire B., the legendary basketball coach, wrote a series of sports kids books called the Chip Hilton series. And Chip Hilton was sort of this all American kid that just grew up playing three sports. Well, my dad made sure that my brothers and I grew up in that same way. We grew up right next to a baseball field. My mom and dad made sure that any sport that we showed an interest in, we had an opportunity to try to play it. And, you know, JP, compared to everything else, I'm so glad I grew up when I did. It was the day of sandlot sports. You know what? You went to the park, you played basketball, you went up to the pond, you played ice, rink, outside ice hockey until your feet were so cold you couldn't skate anymore. And you played sandlot baseball. You went out with your buddies. It was just a great way to grow up. And like I said, baseball was always my favorite. And I have to thank my dad for that. That's for sure.
That was going to be my next question. I know you're close to your family. Who was your biggest influence in your career?
There's no doubt it was my dad. I still say that my dad taught me more about baseball and more with how to appreciate the game than any person I've ever been around. We grew up in northern New Jersey, 40 minutes from Yankee Stadium, and an hour from Shea. My dad would come grab my brothers and I. He made sure that we had a chance to see all the great players of our generation and the previous generation. The Mickey Mantles, the Rod Carews, the Harmon Killebrews, the Al Kalines. My dad made sure that we had a chance to see every one of them play in person. So I can never repay my dad for passing along the love of the game. That's for sure.
That's so nice to hear, because I had the same upbringing, and it was, I mean, you never forget who influences you, but there's that special bond with baseball between, your dad and yourself, and you really, boy, you look back at those days sometimes and you wish you could go back to them.
No doubt, no doubt.
So you had a very good career at the major league level, but you were always a guy that I would describe as a grinder. You had to really work hard to get your success. And how there's a lot of young kids who listen to the show. There's a lot of minor league guys who listen to the show. Talk to them about your grind through the minor leagues and what were your mindset. And look, at nobody worked harder than Scotty Bradley, but I think people hear that a lot, but they don't understand. Talk to them about a little bit about your grind through the minor leagues.
Well, first, I'm gonna correct you a little bit in that I never considered it a grind. And I don't like the term when I have kids, even now at Princeton, sending me saying, "Oh, I'm out there grinding." I did it because I loved it. I did it because it was fun. Even when I finished up at North Carolina and had a chance to play in the minor leagues, where you and I connected for the first time, even riding the buses and everything else, I couldn't believe that somebody was actually paying me $500 a month, to play baseball. So I never considered it work, JP. It was just fun. It was something that I loved doing. It was part of who I was. My objective was always to try to get to the next level. My goal wasn't to be a big league player. That was my dream, right? So I would go, shut my eyes and I dream about being a big leaguer. But every level that I played at in the minor leagues, my goal was to have success so that maybe next year they thought about jumping me up a level. So again, the grinding aspect of it, it's fun, right? It's who I am. The idea of taking extra swings, the idea of keeping myself in shape, the idea of going to sleep at night and not running around, that was all just part of it. And it goes back to my dad. My dad said, look, if you want to be an athlete, you have to play the part of being an athlete and take care of yourself. But to me, the whole thing was, you hate to say that it's so cliche, but for the love of the game.
Right.
I couldn't believe that somebody was actually like paying me to go out and play baseball. Like I said, I would have done it for nothing in the lower minor leagues. And then as you move up and you get to the big leagues, yes, the rewards are great. The perks are great, but it was still, it was still a dream and something that I enjoyed every aspect of.
And you came through the Yankee organization, which at the time was loaded. And Talk about that experience. Talk about some of the guys you played with. Talk about some of the managers and coaches you played for, and the influences they had on you that enabled you to take step to step to step.
I'm so thankful that I had a chance that I was originally drafted by the Yankees and in the Yankee organization. And, we were taught there was sort of the Yankee way, right? The way you showed up at the ballpark, the way you dressed, the way you wore your uniform. There was always something, even in the minor leagues, about wearing pinstripes, right? About wearing that uniform. We always had players that didn't belong at our level to show us the way, right? We always had players who had success at higher levels that, were sort of those career minor league guys that played with us to help us win at the lower level, because the Yankees really felt like winning was important. And that was part of development. So the Yankees made sure that they weren't going to infringe on somebody's development, but in open positions where they didn't have prospects, as we had a lot of older players in those positions to make sure that we were successful at the lower minor leagues. We were fortunate, like my first year in Oneonta, there was a strike. So George Steinbrenner took some of the major league staff and sent them to the minor league affiliates. And I was fortunate enough that we had Jeff Torborg with us. And Jeff Torborg, as a Jersey guy, sort of always had a soft spot in his heart for me. Always was looking out for me, always making sure that I had what I needed, and was probably my biggest advocate and mentor all the way through the Yankee, organization. The next year, I actually, and it doesn't happen in the Yankee organization very much, I actually jumped from Oneonta, had a very good year up there, and actually jumped to Nashville, which was the AA team. So I was bypassing A-ball, where I had a chance. Johnny Oates was the manager in AA. Again, somebody, I think when he looked at me, I think he saw himself, a left-handed hitting catcher, not overly blessed with great ability, but good enough ability to be playing at that level. And I was there for a couple weeks, and then the Yankees made a trade and picked up another catcher. So all the catchers were bumped down. So I was at that point sent back to Fort Lauderdale. And the Fort Lauderdale team was one of my favorite teams that I've ever played on, because, as you know, there were so many guys who have stayed in the game. There were so many guys who had great coaching careers at a lot of different levels. Stump Merrill was our manager, so I had a chance to be around an old school baseball guy like Stump. We had the likes of Brian Butterfield, who is just one of the greatest infield coaches that the game has seen over the last 15 years. Bobby Tewksbury was our best pitcher. Bob was so cerebral, became just a terrific baseball sports psychologist. Just some great guys. Bobby Mariano was our third baseman, who came out of LSU, who spent years coaching in the in the minor leagues. So it was just such a fun team to be around. We won the championship, but again, we weren't loaded with a whole lot of prospects. But boy, we had guys who loved the game, and it was fun going to the ballpark every day. Made the jump to AA the next year, and for the full year in Nashville. And I don't know whether other people have said it. To me, that's where the talent really showed. Most organizations at that time had 2 or 3 A-ball teams, all merging into one AA team. So there were a lot of really talented guys who never even got to AA at that point. We used to liken it to coming out of going to a Knick or a Ranger game and coming out of the Lincoln Tunnel, or heading into the Lincoln Tunnel, where you have all these lanes of traffic merging into one. So the talent level in the Southern League that year, I can remember that, one of the teams, the Mariner team, actually had, Langston and Harold Reynolds and Alvin Davis. And every night you saw talent. It might not be polished yet, but every night, boy, you saw unbelievable talent, unbelievable arms. I think the season was 144 games in 150 days, playing in southern cities like Nashville and Memphis and Jacksonville. It was hot and humid. It was tough. it was tough. You were riding buses all the time. It was sort of the classic sort of old school minor league baseball life. And it was tough. I hit 270 in the Southern League, and I think it's the best I've ever swung the bat in my life. I hit rockets every game, and it was a hard time getting hits. I went to AAA the next year in Columbus. I hit 330 in AAA or 335 and won the International League batting title the next year. And I honestly felt like I had hit the ball better the year before in AA.
That's interesting. And, you describe the minor leagues and you describe the players. You have such an appreciation for the game. And I don't think people realize how many good players you play with. We all have, and we all did, that don't even sniff Double A, that don't even sniff Triple A, and certainly don't sniff the big leagues. And I always admire that about you, that your appreciation for the guys you've played with and been around, and you respect the game so much that you're able to explain it to people in a very nice way.
I appreciate that. And I think it's just part of the passion for your teammates and your friends, and realizing everybody's sort of doing something really unique. I always joke around, and I always tell people that I was a very, very average player and stuff, but I was an average player at the major league level, which compared to everybody else in the world is good. I'm very proud of my accomplishments. I'm proud that I was able to get to the big leagues and stay there for a while. Yes, I was very average at the major league level, but I think being around my young Princeton guys and stuff all the time sometimes really helps, for me to remember just how special what I had was. And then, JP, what was interesting was, I moved up relatively quick through the minor leagues, especially as you mentioned for the Yankee organization. Was in the big leagues for quite a while. And then I'm one of the few guys that I went back to AAA as a player, AA as a player, and back to A-ball. So I did the whole bell curve. I hit all the affiliates on the way up, and I hit them on the way back down.
You liked it so much, you wanted to do it twice.
And, when I was going back down, and after almost a 10-year big league career, when I was back in the minor leagues, kind of living a Crash Davis type of existence, I think that's where I realized just how much I love baseball. Because I had all these young kids, we'd be on these long bus trips. When I was actually in the Reds organization when I went back down at one point, and they basically told me they wanted me to mentor Danny Wilson. And if you know Danny, they told me I wasn't going to catch very much. I wasn't going to play a whole lot. They said Danny's just a top level prospect, and he couldn't be he's one of the nicest human beings that I've ever met in my life. Not only was he a great player, so respectful. And the day I walked into the clubhouse, he walked up to me and introduced himself and said, I want to know everything that you know. And every bus trip, every day, he'd want to talk about what he did, from pitch calling to whatever. And I think that's where I really got the feeling that, all right, I want to stay in the game as long as possible. And having people like Danny Wilson, who ended up being a far superior player than I ever thought about being, wanting to learn from me, really made that special.
Well, I think you're selling yourself a little short. I think you're a little better player than average. But the fact that you have that passion for the game has always been something that I've admired, because I've always enjoyed our conversations, no matter what it is. If it's I don't see you for 2 or 3 years or whatever, we hit each other and the baseball conversation starts flowing. And you've always had a really good baseball mind. So I'm going to skip over your major league career, because we know you were a major league player. But I think the thing that attracts me the most to Scotty Bradley is your mind and your passion for the game. I know you're a big development guy. So when you watch Major League Baseball today, what do you like about it, and what bothers you about it?
That's a really good question. I think there's still some things that are missed. I think, and we're starting to get back to a little bit, but you can't emphasize enough the importance of experience, right? Everything seems to be rushed these days. They're taking the young players, they're rushing them they have so much money invested in them now, they're rushing them to the big leagues. For us, you learned how to play baseball in the minor leagues. You'd come out of a college program, and I went to UNC. It was a very good college program. I needed my minor league time. I needed my years. I needed to learn how to become a professional baseball player. I needed to learn how to take care of myself, right? When you get to AAA, we talked a little while ago about AA, about the talent. When you're in AAA, and for me in Columbus, the entire team had major league experience. We had guys like Butch Hobson and Bucky Dent, on our team that had really successful major league careers that were there just to help us, right? Help us win, help us learn what it was like to play. All the guys you faced had experience. They'd played. If you had a hole, if you were, you saw so much velocity, some of the inconsistency, but velocity every day in AA. When you got to AAA, you saw guys with 2 and 3 and 4 years big league experience that knew how to play. It was completely different. So I think sometimes guys are rushed to the big leagues, right now. And I think what's missed, all the data, and we use it here. I mean, all the technology and all the data and everything is great. But you can't sometimes forget that you play baseball with your eyes. And I think that it's not taught enough. I don't think there's enough discussion that goes on with player development people in all organizations and the players in terms of, okay, tell me what you see. Don't tell me what the spreadsheet shows. Don't tell me what the scouting report shows. Tell me what you see. I get frustrated sometimes with my own players at Princeton because we have all the technology here. We have True Media, we have Synergy, we have TrackMan. So our players, even here at Princeton, have access to more data than you could ever imagine. And I watch a pitcher come in the 6th inning, and everybody runs over to the tablet, or everybody runs over, and I'm like, guys, watch. Everything you need to see. This is a pitcher. Look, everything is down. This is a guy, you need to make sure that he gets the ball up for you. The whole idea of spin rate for us, and I'll call myself an old timer, is life and hop, right? We used to face pitchers that you could see had such good four-seam life on their fastball, right? And that translates to a high spin rate. And that's a guy that you would say, okay, I got to make sure this guy gets the ball down. I have to see it lower than my hands. I got to make sure I get on top of this pitch. Hey, this is a guy we need to make him throw strikes. Or, hey, this is a guy that is going to try to get ahead of you early. He's got a great put-away pitch. We probably need to swing early in the count, right? I get frustrated sometimes when some of the new thought doesn't think that us that played 15, 20, 25, 30 years ago, we used analytics, but the analytics were in our eyes and our vision and from talking to each other, right? It wasn't necessarily everything to put down. I tell people all the time, and people think that I'm crazy, one of the greatest baseball minds that I've ever been around, who I think would have absolutely loved today's generation of analytics and data, and this will surprise you, Yogi Berra. Right? Like, I had a chance to play for Yogi. Yogi was my first major league manager. Yogi could tell you weeks in advance what pitchers you were going to see when you went in to, say, Kansas City. He knew people's rotation. He knew who was hot and who knew he was not, just because he looked at box scores and
Right.
he looked at box scores and devoured information when it was available to him. Like, we'd go into a scouting meeting and he would say, hey, we got to be careful with Willie Wilson. He's jumping early in the count. We knew we had to be careful with George Brett. Of course, everybody did. But he would know certain guys, hey, this guy's really hot. He's swinging the bat well. This guy's he's swinging early in the count.
Right.
And he just knew this. Can you imagine him if he had all this data and all this information at his disposal?
But it's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing that, going back to what you said, just by watching the game and absorbing the game, that he had this information.
Had all of it.
I sit there and I see the players. A big league player is looking at his wrist where to play somebody. I find that so embarrassing. If I'm a big league player and I'm not watching where the location is, I'm not watching where the swing is, how can I coach myself?
Here's the name you remember. Do you remember Victor Mata?
Oh yeah, good player. I played against Victor.
Okay, so Victor and I played together for multiple years through the minor leagues. Got to the big leagues a little bit, was different things. You talk about a baseball mind. Victor wasn't the fastest, toolsiest person in the world. So we had a really good sinker ball guy on the mound for us. It might have been like Clay Christensen or somebody. I'm gonna throw out names that people have no idea. And they had a left-handed kind of a pull hitter up, and Victor's shading him to left center field. And here's a sinker down and away. The guy smokes it into left center field, and Victor gets to it easily. And I can remember asking him when he came in, okay, why were you shading him to left center? He says, well, I know the way Clay was going to pitch him. If he pulls it, he's going to hit a line drive or a ground ball. I know that if he's going to hit one good off of the fastball that he was going to throw, it had to be to left center field. And that was just him from observation and watching. It wasn't like he had to have anybody tell him what to do. In fact, the data probably would have showed, well, he pulls more than he doesn't. But he knew that if he was going to hit a ball good with the sinkers that we were going to throw him, it was going to be to left center. So he, on his own, just shaded him to left center field a little bit.
Do you think the data today is a crux for players?
Yes. Yes. And I think, JP, goes all the way back to youth baseball. I think he goes all the way back to high school and even into college, in that sometimes I think the best way to coach is to leave alone.
Right.
I think it's amazing what, even at the youth baseball level, which is a completely different show for you, at the youth baseball, it's amazing what the kids will figure out if, as coaches and parents, we let them figure it out. This entire generation has been told their entire lives what to do, when to run, when not to run, when to swing, when not to swing, what pitches to look for, what not to, right? How to get out of a slump. Okay, you had a slump. Instead of figuring it out on your own, let's go sign you up for more hitting lessons, right? The best players make adjustments from pitch to pitch. There's no time. I tell some of my players, there's no time for you to send video to your hitting instructor because you need to have a good at-bat your next time up, or I should probably take you out of the game now. Right? We'll play games in the fall where we play intentionally without base coaches. And not because we're too lazy to go out there. I want my players to have to figure it out.
Right.
I want them to know the speed of the ball that's hit. I want them to know where the guys are playing. Right? I want them to know, hey, the score of the game. Yeah, I can take a chance and try to go first to third on this ball. Right? Again, I think this entire generation of baseball players has been told exactly what to do from an offensive standpoint, from a defensive standpoint, from positioning to how to pitch to how to throw. And we've just sort of lost that feel, that intuitive feel with how to be successful in the game. I tell hitters all the time, so many of our hitters and young hitters that I'm around, not even at Princeton, but whatever else, are always searching for the perfect swing, right? And I try to tell them that I've played with a lot of really good players with really bad swings who are some of the best hitters I've ever been around in my life. And I've been around some guys with some amazing swings, some beautiful swings that really struggle when it comes time to being really good hitters.
I've always said this. Our game is made up of all kinds of players that come from everywhere, all sizes, all shapes. You have to allow that player to keep his individuality. That's what separates him. Some guys can hit with a leg kick. Some guys can't. Some guys can hit with a hand hitch. Some guys can hit off their front foot. Some guys just have a different approach that there is no cookie cutter way. You have to look at the player and then say, okay, this is how it works for him. Because, we even in the scouting world, they always tell you, look for this, look for that. But you get to the big leagues, Cal Ripken's 6'4" playing shortstop. It's not how you draw it up. You've got, Edgar Martinez, who hits with a little bit of a leg kick. You've got different guys who do things different ways. And what we look for doesn't match up what's in the big league. So I go back to what you were saying is I wish we would let the individual keep his individuality a little bit. We're trying to cookie cutter everybody. And I think it's been, I don't think the results have been good.
No, and I think that the best organizations in baseball, and I do see over the last few years, I have seen a little bit of a reverse back towards that philosophy.
I agree with you.
And both my boys had a chance to play, minor league baseball. Kevin was in the Indians organization, and Scotty was in the Blue Jay organization. And I thought both those organizations, in terms of player development and everything, actually sat with the players and said, okay, describe yourself as a player. Describe, they wanted the players to understand what they were doing when they were doing well. What type of player do you think you can be? Right. And I do the same with my players, like this whole hit the ball up in the air phenomena that's sort of starting to creep its way back away again. Like you said, I had a guy on my team, Kyle Vinci, who set our school home run record, a Del Barton kid. So he played alongside of Anthony Volpe and Jack Leiter and everything. Bruce Chattel has one of the best programs in the state of New Jersey. I could take Kyle to an MLB home run derby, and I'm telling you, we would have a chance to win. Hit 21. We had COVID and some other things his first couple years. His junior year, he had 21 home runs in 40 games. He naturally just elevated the ball. He didn't really try, whatever. And he's also capable, like an Aaron Judge, his routine fly ball was a home run in college with an aluminum bat. I had certain guys on my team that wanted to try to be Kyle Vinci. And I asked them, how many home runs did you hit last year? And they said, I hit one. I said, well, why are we trying to hit the ball up in the air? And one of the best statistics ever, I don't, it's not all or nothing, right? It's not like my generation, we didn't, we were taught level swings. We weren't taught to hit down on it. We were taught to have a level swing. We weren't trying to hit ground balls, right? We weren't trying to hit fly balls. I still think that every hitter should go up with the idea of trying to hit a line drive, right? You got a round bat and a round ball. It's not that easy to try to hit the ball in the air. But if I try to hit line drives and stay through the zone, and again, everybody's different. Some people have more of a natural uppercut than others. Some people are a little bit more level and downhill, like a Corbin Carroll I watch. Corbin Carroll is our generation, right? His swing is so level and flat, through the zone. Manny Machado's swing is so level through the zone. And with a ball that's being thrown and you just square it up, if the ball leaves with backspin, it's going to go in the air. Right? You don't see too many, nobody wants to swing chop down at a ball where you're hitting backspin balls on the ground. Right?
I
If you hit the
remember
ball on the ground, it's gonna have some overspin.
I remember Ted Simmons telling me one time, he said, I never looked to hit a home run. I just looked to hit the ball hard on the level plane. And if I off-center the ball a little bit, that's where my home run's going to come from. But I'm not going to alter my swing to try to make it a home run swing.
And Fangraphs and all the data and everything else shows that, of course, a ball on the ground is going to have a higher batting average than a ball in the air, but it's going to have a lower slugging percentage and OPS.
Right.
A ball in the air, the average won't be as good, but you're going to hit some doubles and some home runs if you're capable of hitting doubles and home runs. You look at Fangraphs, a line drive results in like a 450 batting average and like a 1400, OPS, higher than both line drive, ground balls and fly balls. And I ask my players all the time, is a line drive on the ground or in the air? Right. And they go, it's in the air. And I said, well, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to hit line drives, and then we'll figure out, we'll take whatever happens. You'll hit some hard ground balls. You'll hit some balls up in the air that turn into home runs.
You know what's funny is if you look at the guys that we're talking about, Brett and guys like that, they all hit for average and they all hit for power. I don't know where it became so exciting to eliminate the batting average. And, I got in an argument with someone the other day. They said batting average doesn't matter. I said, okay. I said, I don't buy that. I said, but let me ask you something. Pete Rose, his first 18 years in the big leagues, 15 of them he hit 300. 9 of those years he scored 100 runs. So you're telling me that by hitting 300, he wasn't on base more? And that whole team was built around Morgan and Rose setting up for Foster, Bench, and Perez. I said, so someone who hits 300 or 280 or 290 has a higher batting average, they're still going to be on base. They still have the ability to score runs. And I just can't get my head around why batting average doesn't mean something.
No, and here's the big thing too. And as we're getting ready to get into the final couple months of the season, and as we get into the postseason, and we've seen it, I don't know why, but baseball seems to have devalued the single, right? And when you get in the postseason, the team that is going to win is the team that's going to, with runners on second and third and 2 outs, you're going to have a guy who's going to get a single, and he's going to drive in 2 runs, right? You can't, against the elite pitching and the elite bullpens, just think that your guys are going to go up and get a mistake and hit a home run.
Right.
Contact actually becomes more important in the postseason. And singles. I actually got in an argument. We actually did during Zoom, or during COVID, we did a team Zoom with the Boone family. So we had Aaron, Bob, Brett, and then Brett's son Jake played for me at Princeton. So they were nice enough to all come on. And Aaron and I were arguing on the Zoom about that batting average doesn't matter. So I kind of gave him a scenario, and I said, all right, Aaron, it's the bottom of the 9th. You have a 1-run lead. There's runners on second and third. There's 2 outs. You have to get one of the next 2 hitters out to win the ball game. One of them is hitting 375 with 380 slug, so he's basically a single guy. The other guy is hitting 240, hits a bunch of home runs, has a significantly higher slugging percentage and OPS. I said, who are you going to pitch to? I said, do you want to know who has the higher batting average or not? Because all you have to do is get an out, and a single's going to beat you, right? So batting average matters. Ask any hitter, do you want to get a hit or do you want to make an out, right?
Well, just from a scouting standpoint, if I look at Scott Bradley and Oneonta hit 288.
What? I hit way higher than that.
I know you did. I'm using. Then he goes to Lauderdale and he hits 320. Then he goes to AA and he hits 315. And then he goes to AAA and he has a year where he hits 220. Scott Bradley is more the 300 hitter than he was the 220 hitter. His history will tell you that. He had an outlier year, and it works the other way. I think of Mark Belanger, 210, 220, hit 270 one year, went back to 210. The batting average at least tells you it's indicative of what his history is as a player, and you give him the benefit of the doubt. And I just don't understand how we don't value the fact that a guy has the ability to make high contact, and he gets points taken away for that.
Well, I think the most important thing, and I think the best teams and the best GMs right now are putting teams together that have balance.
Right.
Right. You have to have balance. Look, you can't have a team full of high average, low on base guys that hit a lot of singles. Right. But there is a place in the lineup, depending upon the makeup of your team. And like you said, every team, it's not one size fits all. Right. You have to look at your ballpark. You have to you spent time as a GM. Right? You have to look at your team. You have to look at what you have. You have to look at, you can't predetermine how your team is going to play until you see what the pieces are. Right? And then some injuries and stuff like that. So yeah, hey, if I have a spot in my lineup, maybe 6th or 7th, I can have a low average, high slugging on OPS type of a guy. He's going to force the other team to have to throw a lot, the other pitcher to throw pitches. He can create and hit a home run when maybe there's nobody on base. We might get two with one. I can't have a team full of that because the really good pitchers in the league are going to eat them up. You have to have balance. You have to have some contact speed guys in your lineup and still look at the best hitters in the game right now. Look at Judge. Look at Soto. I mean, we watch the Yankees all the time here. Look what their averages are.
I know.
Right? They're just complete hitters. They hit for high average. They hit home runs. They do everything. When we were playing, it was the George Bretts, right? Maybe the home run numbers weren't the same, but the doubles, the triples, the OPS. I look at power as being able to drive a run in from first base.
Right.
Right. Power is big extra base hits. And I think if you can go back in the last X number of years, to me, I always thought the best hitters in baseball were the guys who had the most extra base hits. You might have a guy with 50 doubles, only 20 home runs, but he had 50 doubles. to me, those are the best hitters in baseball, the guys that are capable of having extra base hits.
So let's switch over to Princeton now. Explain to everybody, Princeton is not a Power 5 school, as some of the listeners may not know. It's an Ivy League school, high academics, tough school to get into, and a challenge for any coach, I got to believe. But you've done a very good job there. You've taken the team to the NCAA tournament. Talk to the listeners about the Princeton experience.
I was able to see the Princeton experience firsthand. Some of the people, if they know anything about me, they know that I really come from a unique family. My younger brother, Jeff, covered the Yankees for the Daily News, wrote for ESPN, the magazine, a very, very successful career as a sports journalist. Now actually has a baseball glove company for kids. So he has gloves specifically geared for 6 to 12-year-old kids called Bradley Baseball Gloves. Great product and everything else. My older brother, Bob, is a world-renowned soccer coach, coached the U.S. national team in the World Cup. His son, Michael, was captain of the national team. Bob coached the U.S. team in the South African World Cup. First American to coach in the English Premier League. Well, Bob's a Princeton guy. He graduated from Princeton, and he also had a chance to coach soccer at Princeton for 12, 13, 14 years. So when I was done my playing career, we decided that we wanted to live and raise our family in the Princeton area, had a chance to be around Princeton, just saw how unique it was, had a chance to get to know some of I call them scholar athletes, just how balanced, how well-rounded, how talented they were in all regards. There was a baseball coach, Tom O'Connell, a New England guy who coached at Brandeis before he came to Princeton. Just had a great program, had a chance to turn some guys to professional baseball. And when I came in, when I was done, I had a chance. We were living in the area. I was at one of my brother's soccer games, and Gary Walters, the athletic director, sent a message to me, hey, Coach O'Connell is going to retire. Is this something you would be interested in? And at the time, I said, absolutely. So I went and worked for the legendary Rutgers coach, Fred Hill, for a year while Coach O'Connell was finishing up. Put my name in, went through the process, and was fortunate enough to be given the opportunity to coach at Princeton. It's so unique. Our athletes are so well-rounded. They want to develop in every aspect of their life. They want to challenge themselves academically. They want to be able to enjoy themselves from a social aspect. They want to take the tough courses, but yet they also want to come in and see how they can develop as baseball players. And, JP, I've been here almost closing, just short of 30 years now. My very first recruit at Princeton University was Chris Young. So I came in, I had that first team that first year. I'm right in the middle of the recruiting process. I was hired in July. My very first recruit, my very first conversation was 6'10" Chris Young, basketball player from Highland Park, Texas. And getting to know Chris, and when we were able to bring Chris in and have him come to Princeton, I remember talking to Chris. Here he was, bright, articulate, focused, driven, wanted to get a Princeton degree, but every time I talked to him about where do you see yourself in 7, 8 years, and he always said, Coach, I see myself on a big league mound pitching for a World Series title. So Chris enabled me to realize that I could coach at Princeton, still help guys live out a dream of getting to the major leagues. The captain of that very, very first team, I didn't recruit him, but the captain of the team my very first year was Mike Hazen, the current general manager of the Arizona Diamondbacks. So you're talking about some really high level, and people don't understand, Mike was a really good player. So my first year, I'm watching Mike play, and I'm calling up all the area scouts saying, why isn't anybody watching this kid? Got him a chance to go play. And this all culminated last year when the Rangers played against the Diamondbacks. The day after the Diamondbacks came back to beat the Phillies, I had a text from Chris and Mike saying, Coach, we need you at the World Series. We have hotel, airfare, tickets, whatever you need, you have to be here.
That's pretty
So
special.
having those two guys showed me that I never had to look at the Power Five schools. I had something so unique, so special. Again, I've been here, close to 30 years. We've had 8 of our players get to the major leagues. 3 are current. We're going to add Mike Chernoff to that list. 3 are current major league GMs right now. We've had 8 guys get to the major leagues as players. And yet every year, these guys, I'm just as proud of my guys who are investment bankers and doctors and lawyers and teachers and coaches. It's just been amazing that I've had a chance to be around just some amazing, amazing young men and watching them now go into parenthood. Jake Coonan is an all Ivy League second baseman for me right now. His dad, Jason, played for me in my first 2 years. So, you've been around the block a few times when I had a chance to coach a dad, and now I'm coaching his son.
That's pretty cool. And you still got the same passion for it.
No doubt. And, probably over the last 4 or 5 years, it's really come back even more energy than I've ever had. Especially, like I said, when you have a Jake Coonan who, I coached his dad. So, and especially when you see what Chris Young is doing, what Mike Hazen's doing, Mike Chernoff and all these guys. I've been very fortunate and blessed to have had an amazing opportunity to be here at Princeton for quite a while now.
Any thoughts of ever getting in the pro ball?
You know what? About 6 or 7 years ago, I sort of became a little bit of a hot commodity, interviewed for some high level, player development positions, farm directors, director of minor league ops. I had a chance where I was looking at it at the time and everything else. I was a bridesmaid for a couple of pretty significant jobs. And I'm so glad that it worked out the way that it did, because I'm much better suited. I love what I'm doing. Like I said, pro ball is different now, right? It's different. The way that organizations are, running things. It would have to be a very unique position with certain people that I would consider it. But, I love where I'm at. I mean, Princeton, it'd be pretty, we always talk about like the players, like the George Bretts, who when they look at the back of their baseball card and it has one team, I would love to finish up, as a college, my college baseball coaching card, that it only has Princeton on the back of it would be pretty cool.
Well, you've had an amazing career. You've been, such a mentor to so many players. And like I said in the beginning of this, your passion for the game, it's so exciting to be around. I mean, I wish we had more of it. I think the pro game has lost it. I think it's become very sterile and very predictable on how things are taught, and there's no pushback. There's no question. I think we miss the personalities like yourself that not only were an ex-player, but have all this experience to pass on. And Princeton's pretty lucky to have you, Scotty.
Well, I appreciate it. And, it's interesting because as, you and I had a chance to play together, we had a chance to be teammates. We had a chance to watch our kids kind of grow up, play against each other and with each other in a few events, which makes it a lot of fun. But as I mentioned in the beginning, coming up in the Yankee organization, when I look at sort of my baseball lineage, as I like to say, the fact that I had a chance to play for the likes of Billy Martin, Yogi Berra, Whitey Ford was in spring training every year. And I'm a baseball historian.
Yeah.
All the way now to see Chris Young, Mike Hazen, Mike Chernoff overseeing major league organizations. That's a long time span that I feel like I was impacted with and had the chance to impact. So again, my baseball lineage, that train track is running a long distance right now, and I'm very proud of that.
Yeah, and you should be. And we want to thank you so much for taking some time out. I know you're running camps and you're trying to line up your freshmen coming in, but I want to wish you nothing but the best, you and your family, and thanks for taking the time to come on here.
My pleasure, JP. You know where to find me, and anytime you want to chat again, I'm free.
All right, Scotty. Thanks, buddy. Take care. All the best.
Care.
What a wealth of knowledge. What a career Scott has had, JP.
Well, you know, I like to think that on this show we get people with an unbelievable passion for baseball, and not only unbelievable passion for baseball, but wanting to pass on that passion. And I think Scotty's one of those guys. He just loves the game, and he has such a history of the game behind him, a deep knowledge of the game, and wants to pass it on. And I get excited when I talk to baseball people like him. It restores your faith in the game.
Yeah, a purist, and what a smart guy, and what he's done helping all the young kids today. So amazing career that he's had in the big leagues, and an amazing career he continues to have. JP, before we wrap it up, I know you've been doing a lot of work doing your analysis and your broadcasting. So what do you got coming up? You got any games coming up that people can catch on NESN?
Yeah, I've been on NESN Plus this whole week. I started on Tuesday, and we're going to go right through Saturday. It's the series between the AAA club for the Red Sox, the Woo Sox here in Worcester, and they're playing the Phillies, the Iron Pigs of the Phillies AAA affiliate. And it's been great. I've probably done like 20 to 25 games now, and I've been on NESN, the official NESN, for the trading deadline. And some of our games are on NESN when the Red Sox are traveling or off. So it's been a great experience. I really enjoyed it. I hope it's something that can lead to something down the road. Got a lot of good feedback from it. So hopefully we'll continue to go down this path.
Yeah. And for those of you who have the MLB app and subscribe to MLB.com, those minor league games, including AAA games, are archived there as well. So if you want to check out JP, just go, if you have an account, check it out. So he's wonderful, doing a great job. And JP, I tell you, your broadcasting career is great to see it as it unfolds, man. It really is.
It's been fun. It's been a lot of fun. I kind of go at it like I bring a different perspective, I think. I bring a front office perspective, and I bring a 30 years scouting perspective. So as you're watching the game, you're able to point out things from an evaluation standpoint that you see. You're able to point out some different thoughts about, the way the game is played and how organizations are looking at certain things. So I think it's a different perspective, and one that's probably unique to what's going on right now.
Yeah, and a lot of these things that JP is doing could be found on his social media, which continues to grow at a really rapid clip right now. So go there to see some great content, opinions, clips from this program, clips from JP's announcing. So follow him on X and Instagram at, I'll spell it out, RICCIARDI-JP. That's Instagram and X. And please subscribe to this show on your favorite podcast platform. Don't forget, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, give it a 5-star review. Give us a nice review there. We'd really appreciate that. And subscribe to the YouTube channel, because all the shows are there. They're all archived, every single show, every single guest. We have short clips up there and the entire program. So subscribe to that channel. Just go to youtube.com/Brushback with JP. And that's going to wrap it up for this show. Another great one in the books. Until next week when we return, this is John Arezzi for JP. Have a great week, everyone.